I'm going to start off with what I found in this article. I found all kinds of articles when I started doing some research for this and diving down this hole. But this is from an article written 6 years ago, and it talks about the statistics of violations. And this one went in part three of this was that they gave 66,000 violations in 2016 to people who couldn't speak English. Um, just think about that. How many drivers are there out there who cannot speak English, who cannot drive safely because they can't read warning signs? 66,000 of them got a ticket 6 years ago. How many didn't get a ticket, and how many more are driving out there today? All right, let's talk shop for a little bit. um, should drivers be required to speak English? This is a debate for a lot of people. I'm going to walk outside here. Got the air conditioning going. I don't know if it's going to affect the sound, but this is a debate a lot of people have. But as far as the legalities go, it is against the law. It clearly states in FMCSA regulations that a driver has to speak, read, and understand English sufficiently to carry on a conversation, to fill out logbooks, to interpret maps, to all these different things. It says it 4 different ways that you have to speak English. All right, so I know some of you guys are driving, so I'm going to read this to you. This is what the FMCSA has to say. A commercial driver has to be able to read and speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the general public, to understand highway traffic signs and signals in the English language, and to respond to official inquiries, and to make entries on reports and records. Misinterpret it. There are a lot of things in federal regulations that is kind of left up to interpretation because you don't really understand what they're saying, but this is not one of those things. Oh man, it rained really hard here last night. I don't know if you can tell, but so is it legal? No, it's not legal. Is it just? I believe it's just. I don't think anybody that can't understand a warning sign, who's driving what could be 80,000 pounds doing 70 miles an hour down the road, if you can't understand a warning sign, that is the last position you should be in. You should not have any safety related job function where you can impact the lives of others if it comes down to you being able to read English and you can't. Hope that made sense. This is not about social injustice or racism or anything like that, because people come from all over the world. If you've been to California lately, you'll realize that a good percentage of truck drivers out there are from Russia or Ukraine or Eastern Europe. So, it's all about safety. Well, we allow Mexican truck drivers into the States every single day. What have you got to say about that? Those drivers fall, as soon as they cross that border, they fall under the same rules that we do, the same exact rules. They have to be able to speak, read, and understand English. Does anybody check them when they come across the border? Not normally, but if you've been paying attention the past couple of days, the governor of Texas he put 100% inspection on trucks coming across the border. And Mexican truck drivers are actually on strike over there. They've shut down all traffic across the border because they don't agree with it. I think it's funny. I think it's way overdue, because if you've ever been down to that border and seen those trucks that come across there, some of them can't even get up to 50 miles an hour. They're duct taped together, wired together, but that's a whole different subject. But those guys coming across the border fall under the same exact rules we do. For instance, if they come across and get a speeding ticket, if they pulled over for speeding, you know what? They're going to get a second speed ticket if they can't speak English, because DPS officers in the state of Texas will write you a ticket if you're in a commercial vehicle and you can't communicate with them. So, it's not about social injustice as far as the safety part of it goes, as far as the federal regulations. Now, every state offers the written test to get your CDL. They offer the written test in different languages. In Texas, they offer it in English and Spanish, and that goes the same for most states. Some states like California offer it in 30 or 40 different languages, but that is only the written test. When it comes to the skills test, there is no possible way legally that you can pass that test without being able to speak English. You can't describe to a tester what you're doing during your pre-trip inspection if you can't speak English. If you don't understand English, you don't understand when the tester is telling you to do things like release your brakes or back up or turn down here at the next signal or stop. There's no possible way to pass a test. My arm's getting a little bit tired here. But that, how are people getting their CDL if they can't speak English? People are being bribed. Why do they have to be bribed if it's not illegal? It is illegal, and that's why they have to be bribed. And the reason that this is happening is that companies come to the U.S., they get their trucking authority, and they specifically hire foreign drivers. They're taking advantage of immigrants. There's your social injustice. They can get these guys to come over here, whether they've been trained overseas somewhere in their home country, or they bring them over here and train them, and then they bribe an official or a tester and get them their CDL license. And even if they pay $5,000 to get this license, guess what? They get that back in a couple of weeks. And it pays big dividends and big profits for these companies to do that instead of hiring an American driver. All right, don't look at screen. I'm going to read this to you. I just wanted to insert this right here. This is a news article. You can pull up these things right and left if you look for them. This happened in San Antonio, Texas in 2018 or 19. I can't read that small print there. But San Antonio, Texas, the FBI found that the officials given the test at the San Antonio Department of Public Safety were being bribed by a trucking company. And they were paying them for each license they would give to one of these guys they brought from Cuba. Over 200 of these Cuban drivers or people were brought over to become truck drivers, and this trucking company was bribing to get each one a CDL license. And now keep in mind, this was about the same time when the Cuban guy came down that mountainside in Colorado and his brakes failed. He bypassed the runaway truck lane and ran into the folks who were stopped and killed, I believe it was 4 or 5 people. Okay, I'm going to put a couple more in here because this is really interesting to me and it's really opening a can of worms. This one here is from the Baltimore Sun. This bribery ring, they could pay $400 or $500 for a commercial, for a license. They wanted a commercial license. They would charge as much as $3,000 and give them hazmat endorsement, fuel tanker, and double endorsements. Now, this article right here is really interesting. It's a long article, can't read it, but it's from Time. It's called Trucking in the USA, where the accent is Russian. This goes into a lot of corruption from Russians, Ukrainians, Bosnians, the Eastern Europe countries, and how thousands upon thousands, all these articles, thousands upon thousands of people bribing their way into a CDL license with no experience, not able to speak, read, or communicate in English, and they give them a CDL and they're out there on the road. Now, one of the things I searched very, very hard for, and it just is not happening. Out of all these cases, people are getting convicted of bribery, but nobody is getting their license taken away. They're still all out there on the roads. If you've been driving in America, you're used to a certain standard of living, and most of us won't accept anything below a certain rate or drive for 20 cents a mile. A lot of these people are being taken advantage of because of that. If you remember, a couple of years ago, there was a guy out in Colorado didn't read, speak, or understand English. His brakes failed coming down the mountain. He drove right by a runaway truck lane, plowed into stopped cars, and I believe he killed 4 or 5 people. You know, they gave him this outrageous sentence, and I don't know whatever happened to that. But that's just a, you know, one example. Did he see the sign and wasn't able to read it, or did he know what the sign meant and went right on by? Either way, not only is he at fault, but the trucking company. I read that you know, a while back that trucking company he worked for has gotten all kinds of tickets for drivers who couldn't speak English during a traffic stop. So this is not one of those issues that, you know, you can rail on social injustice or talk about racism. This comes down to, you know, cut and dry. Is it safe for somebody to drive 80,000 pounds of, you know, what have you? Could be a truck full of fuel, gasoline. You're going to let somebody drive down the road that can't even read a warning sign? Let me know what you guys think. I think everybody should be, like the law says, the regulation says, you should be able to speak, read, and understand English sufficiently to do the job. No matter, you know, I'm not just talking about driving a commercial truck. You wouldn't want somebody working at a nuclear plant or a pharmacy or you know, something like that. It's just common sense. It's a safety factor. Excuse me. So, you know, when I was thinking about this, I want to take it a step further. Am I just thinking about this too much? If you throw a safe driver out there, are they going to be safe? And I had to think about it, you know, before I did this video, and I don't think so. You can have the safest driver in the world. He's driven in wherever, you know, Canada all his life, and he doesn't speak any English. All the road signs, you know, seem the same. All the laws are pretty much the same, but all this guy speaks is French. So he comes down here, he picks up a load. He can't read the bill of lading that says you're carrying hazmat material. If he has an accident, he doesn't know what to do in case that material spills out. He can't read it and say, oh, this is taking me to the wrong address, or any special instructions that might be on there. That's just one little example. I don't want to make this video too long, but you can see where I'm going with this. Even, it doesn't matter where you're from. When you put somebody in that situation, not only is the driver responsible, but it's whoever hired him that's responsible. I've been all over the world, driven in different places. Signs in different parts of the world mean different things. I've been to places where a stop sign and a yield sign were almost exactly the same. I've been in places where stoplights worked backwards. What I mean by that is you would be sitting at a red light and the light would turn yellow and then green. So if you're going down the road, you'd see a green light, it would immediately turn red. It wouldn't give you any notice. So the signs are backwards in some cases. You know, people overseas in some third world countries don't even think about using the brakes half the time. They're laying on that horn, they're flashing their lights, they want you to move out of the way. People drive differently in different parts of the world. You know, the U.S. has some incredibly, you know, tough regulations, and they're a pain in the butt sometimes. But by far, we're one of the safest places to drive because of that. And if you drive here, could you go somewhere else and drive safely? Maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to South America and have to drive a truck, because you could easily become confused with signs. It's like I said, it has nothing to do with racism. I once saw a guy in another country. I was driving down a mountainside, mountain highway. I looked up and the hood was open on this truck, and the guy who was driving was leaning out, and when I got even with him, there was a guy inside the engine compartment working on the engine while they were driving down this mountain highway. You know, and not to mention that the regulations are totally different over there, and depending on where you're at, you might be the safest driver in wherever you're from, wherever it may be. But when you get here and you can't read a sign, then that immediately becomes unsafe until you're able to read that sign. There are very few places in America. There are some where signs are in two different languages, street signs, something like that. But for the most part, everything's in English here. And it's maybe, you know, it's my personal opinion because of the safety issue that people should have the ability to speak, read, and understand English. But not only that, it is a federal regulation. So tell me what you think.